Welcome to Three Crosses Farrier Company. I'm Caleb, and we're going to be walking you through trimming Lakota today. In our previous video, in part 1, we did the front feet, and in this video, we're going to be doing the hind feet. As I've mentioned before, Lakota is a Clydesdale. That's a draft horse. She stands right at 18 hands at the wither and is right at 2,000 pounds for her weight. I'm going to start out by brushing out the bottom of the hoof. I've started doing this because for several reasons. One, it helps me see the hoof a little better. And two, I think it saves my knives. I don't end up dulling my knives quite as fast as I do when I use the knife, when I don't brush out some of the dirt and whatnot. What I'm doing right now is I'm going to exfoliate as much of the dead sole as I can. I have a lot of people in videos ask, does this hurt? No, it doesn't hurt the horse at all. If you take too much, yes, it would hurt, much like your fingernail if you cut it too short. But this isn't going to hurt at all. I've also had people say, well, this hoof is pretty flat. And that's true in a sense, but in a lot of ways, this is a draft hoof. This tends to be what they look like. Primarily because of their weight. They tend to flare out to the sides. They don't grow down as much as they do out. So we get a ton of distortion. Distortion is another word for flare. I'm also going to take out these bars. I'm not going to try to take them all the way out. I'm going to try to define them. Sometimes I take them all the way out, and I have in the past, but I think defining them here will give a little more strength to the foot rather than taking them all the way out. When you're running your nippers, as I've stated in almost every video that I've ever done, it is super important that you run your nippers nice and flat. The nippers I'm using here are 15s. Normally I run 14s, but with a hoof this big, you need big nippers. You'll notice that I rock the nippers and then I move them into the same track. I just rock, and move. This also helps me keep the nippers nice and flat as we go around the hoof. I always really like that when you have a nice big piece that comes off like it was just cut, and you see that the nip line is actually fairly straight. There's not a lot of just chunks, like uneven chunks cut out of it. You can see a couple of cuts, but most everything looks like it's almost level now. So what I'll do is we'll rasp it, get rid of those little discrepancies, and it shouldn't take us long at all. And now you'll see that foot, we've gotten rid of all the dead sole on the bottom. There's a little bit you can see right there by the bars, but I don't want to take it any shorter. I want to leave some hoof there to protect her. I'm using my nippers this way instead of a rasp, just to save a little bit of time. I could do it with a rasp, but it'd take a little longer. And with a hoof this big, time is not your friend. Being underneath them is hard because she's so much heavier than your normal horse. And for her as well, this is not a natural position for her to be in. So if we can get her done a little faster and a little more efficiently, she doesn't have to maintain this stance as long. Same thing with your rasp as with your nippers. You try to run that rasp as flat as you possibly can. See, I took off the hooks on the heels. Now we're going to address the distortion from the top. Some people call this trimming from the top. You'll get done taking length off and the foot still looks long. And the reason for that is the distortion. And so we're going to address distortion from the top view. I have comment after comment after comment on the fact that I use saran wrap to hold the feathers out of the way. I also have people that have commented and said, well, this should have been done for me. Yes, in most of my clients, I do have them do this for me. This gentleman, he's a great guy, and she's a big horse, and it's a little hard for him to get underneath her. And so I don't mind doing it in this case. And I like Serene. I keep it on the truck. I have it. Sometimes I'm out of vet wrap. Vet wrap's more expensive than the Serene wrap. Some people will, use a sock or a scrunchie or something of that nature. And I think that'd be good as well, but it's not something I carry as much. And so this is what I have on the truck. This is what I use. A lot of times when we shoe horses, movement, making extra trips for something or extra tools or whatnot, it's wear and tear on your body. So the goal is to be under the horse as least amount of possible. Do it as efficiently as possible, because your body is the one that's going to take the toll for all the extra movement. Again, I'm using my nippers much the same way as I did on the bottom, just to give me a little jump start before I start rasping, so that I don't have to work as hard with my rasp. She was really struggling on this particular day. You can see it's moved off the post a couple of times. In the last video, I had a comment by, I believe it was a young lady, who was, why don't you get a stand that's big enough for the whole hoof? And that's great, except I need to be able to work all the way around the hoof. So having a wider stand doesn't allow you to do that. These are my favorite stand, to be honest. They have a cradle and a post combo. There's no other company out there that's produced something like this. Usually you have to change out between the cradle and the post. To be honest, I probably should have made the jack just a skosh taller, and then it would have stayed on there a little bit better. These jacks are adjustable, and I could have adjusted, and I just didn't. She was really struggling keeping it on the post this particular day. You can see her when you see her move to the side, I'm holding her in place, so my body's over the top of the leg. That's something you can't really see from this angle, but my shoulder is holding that foot in place. And with a horse this big, that takes some effort. And you can start to see we've gotten rid of some of the distortion, cleaned it up. Looks, in my opinion, looks a lot better. Now we're going to do the other foot. Same process. We're going to get as much of the dirt out of the bottom of the foot before we start knifing. Again, the sheer size of these hooves is absolutely amazing. Now we're going to work on the second hoof. And you'll see right off the bat, there's some differences here. One of the big ones is the medial side, the medial quarter, where my hand is, the inside of the hoof. And then the outside of the hoof, you'll see, is not broken out. It's flared. That inside is cracked, and she stepped on something hard, or it became long and she just broke it out. So we're going to address that. We're going to get it all cleaned up. You can see here, she's still struggling a little bit. She keeps pulling it away from me. Use my brush to get rid of all that dirt and rocks and any gravel and anything else that's in the bottom of that hoof. I'm using a JH Forge knife here. I've been using it for quite a while. In fact, this knife's about done. In fact, I think I broke it the other day. But I am now using some Salcedo knives, which you'll see in some future videos, and I'm really liking them. Gonna get that frog pulled, cut out of there. Again, those frogs trap dirt and bacteria in there, and then they create thrush. We're going to get that opened up. Where I was cutting with the knife, that's called the commissure, the portion of the hoof that is between the sole and the frog. And what I'm working on here is called the bar. Now I'm going to nip. As I said before, keeping it nice and flat, rocking the nippers and moving them around the hoof. And you'll see that I'm not, it looks really long, but I'm not taking off a ton of length. And that's because she's growing out as much, or if not more, than she is down. People have asked in the comments whether it'd be good to have a little bit shorter cycles. And I think she could benefit from that. It would probably help her. And here we're getting to that where it's broken out. And you'll see that the breakout is actually even with where I was nipping for the most part. Bring those heels back. The hoof doesn't grow straight down, it grows down and forward. And so when we nip, we have to bring the heels back for the hoof to function properly. Again, getting rid of all of that extra dead hoof on the bottom, exfoliating it. I mention this probably in every video, but I get at least one comment every video. What do horses in the wild do? Horses in the wild travel a lot more country, and they exfoliate the bottom of their foot through abrasion. Using my knife to get, or my nipper, to get rid of a little bit more of the distortion before I have to rasp it. You'll notice right here, as I come around, that there's a big old nasty hook. And that is distortion. That's not natural. She wouldn't normally have a hook there. So we're going to get rid of that hook. The other thing you'll notice is she's narrower on the inside, the medial side of the hoof, than she is the outside. And what that tells us is she's hitting harder. She's landing to the inside and then stepping to the outside. And this is common. Many horses do this. But that creates distortion. Get it nice and flattened up here. If you nip flat, you don't have to work as much with your rasp. That's the biggest reason for having controlled flat nip lines. There, that looks pretty symmetrical. I'm going to take a little bit more out on that frog. It was just growing over the commissure there. Just a little too much. Where I'm working right there, that's called the center sulcus. And then where my knife was there, that's called the seat of the corn. Right there. That's the seat of the corn. Now we're going to address the outside. We're going to trim from the top and get rid of, if not all, most of the distortion that she has going on here. The outside, the technical name for the outside of the hoof where I'm working here, and you can see the moving up towards the coronary band, it's actually part of the hoof. It looks like mud, but it's mud and part of the hoof. It's part of the periople layer, or the stratum externum, which extends, the stratum externum extends from the coronary band all the way to the bottom of her hoof. And what we're rasping is the stratum externum. In the spring, hopefully, I'm going to take my cert test. I'm pretty excited about that. And so I'm starting to try to use some of the terms that are on the test so that I learn them better and get more familiar with using them. And also I'll understand them because I have to explain those terms as well. So hopefully all of us on this video can learn together, and it'll be a lot of fun. This is such a lot of hoof to rasp. I mean, it is ridiculous how much work this horse is. It's like doing 5 horses at one time. And that should about do it for today. I hope you all enjoyed the video.